Hey, welcome to the Cam Otis Show. Oh man, I am, and you know what? Maybe it's an age thing, but if you're an HGTV guy or gal, like my mother, I think that's all she watches. Other mama is HGTV now. That's all I've been thinking about this morning because we have my good friend Adam McQuistin on, and Adam, he doesn't have a TV show yet, but he does that stuff that we all see on TV and how easy it is to just buy that house, redo it, and sell it. Adam, man, good to see you this morning.
Yeah, we do that in 30 minutes. No,
30 minutes or less. That's
yeah,
right.
as seen on TV. No,
That's right. That's right, man. What I just want to jump into that because I always laugh at that is what is as those TV shows, that network even done to your industry of not just flipping houses, but the whole housing market that you're in.
I love those TV shows because I'm a before and after type of guy, like the vision, right? And so I love watching them myself. That's probably the only channel we would ever watch if we had cable, and when we do might have cable. But as far as the industry, I think it's great because it's brought it to light of the real estate investing avenue for people. So it's created a lot of people to be able to live substantially and financially free and things like that in another industry. It's a great industry. So it's done really good for a lot of people. Now, not to say it's also got some people's hopes up super high and then they crash and burn as well. But the people that plug in and plug into the right places, I think it's really helped a lot of people.
I could imagine that quite a few people, as we were joking in the intro of the 30 minutes, just nice flip. I'm sure there's a good group of people there that were well-intentioned coming in and then got hit in the face with it. What I'm curious about was, as you made the transition from construction, real estate investment, kind of building this up, what were some of the barriers that popped up for you that, gets those people looking for the 30-minute win, gets them out of there, but, something that you've worked with for a while now?
The barriers for me, a lot of those I didn't really see. Not to say it's easy, but with my background in construction, I have. So one of the things that when I teach people real estate or when I talk to people about real estate is I'm looking for a key. I believe everybody has a key factor that's going to unlock their real estate avenue or their real estate path, right? Not everybody is a contractor or has been a contractor, but some people may have a HELOC or a line of credit somewhere or a financial avenue that might be their key. When I came into this, I didn't have a financial avenue. So everybody's got one very specific thing in their own toolbox that can really help expedite them. And until you find that key, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. You don't know where to go or how to do things. And all the information in the world may not do you any good.
And you're kind of an outlier because you started off swinging the hammer and quite literally have started off swinging the hammer and worked your way up. How did you, was it a natural occurrence where because you and I've talked about, creating a vision and things like that. Did you have a vision for this when you started swinging the hammer at a much younger age?
I have been swinging a hammer since I was probably 14. Had nothing to do with real estate investing or anything like that. I just grew up around construction. That was the industry, my family was in and everything. So that was just my key, but it was never a goal like, I'm going to grow up and do real estate construction or real estate. Now, along the lines, I've always had a business mindset and looking for opportunity and things like that. So I think the very first house that I ever looked at when I was probably 17 that kind of got my mind into real estate was an Alice in Wonderland house, leaning, all different colors and everything. And I was like, I knew the owner and I'm like, man, what can I do with this house? It's shot. Well, let me rip it down. It had a propane tank because it was out in the country. Let me rip it down, maybe throw a trailer on there and it'll create income. That was the big picture. It'll create income. And that's always the question in real estate. Does it produce a net income for you? At the end of the day, every deal, it just matters the numbers. So that was the first thing. I didn't go through with that deal due to life circumstances, but I think that's kind of really what made me see, hey, there's a potential to produce this excess income, and it comes through real estate. And so from there, through all my life circumstances, I had a vision of business, typically being, creating a construction industry business, because that's what I knew. So I wasn't familiar with real estate investing or the people around me yet, but I started investing into books and, reading on real estate investing and things of that nature, and also business, which, was one of my college things. So I started just really plugging in and reading, and that actually didn't help her walking by. You might as well walk. No, sorry guys.
You're good.
No worries.
So just really plugging in, started to read the books and everything. Analysis paralysis, I guess you could say, in a lot of ways, right? There's a lot of different avenues of real estate, and just taking it all in for a long, long time and never knowing where to go for a while. But that was kind of the bigger portion that got me into real estate, is just seeing that opportunity there and knowing that I have a potential key to unlock that avenue.
How did you break out of that analysis paralysis? Because I could imagine stepping into that. And honestly, this happens to me with my agricultural background. Every time I think of I'm blanking her name, Tamara, who we had on with the flower farming, I was like, oh my gosh, I started diving in on that research, same type of thing, where it just opens up this whole world. And then it's, how do you break out of that analysis paralysis and go actually start movement? Because I'm sure you got a whole book full of ideas while you're doing all that research.
And by the way, it's Tamara, not Tamara. Tamara's in Australia. Tamara's in Montana.
Yeah. I think so. So a lot of my life has been at the bottom, right? Starting over, starting from scratch, whatever it is. And so I seen that as an advantage. Anytime I look back on my life, anytime that I've been at the bottom, it's been a huge advantage, because I didn't have things holding me back from starting new, right? And so as far as real estate, to kind of elaborate there, when we moved here to upstate New York, I was starting over, right? I had to start a new construction company, rebuild everything in a sense. And so that opportunity allowed me to really just plug in and say, well, there's no turning back. I just had to commit, right? And so when we moved here, I said, okay, I'm getting into real estate. This is what I want to do. Did the realtor test and everything. Now, mind you, I did not sign up under a broker. I ended up not getting my real estate agent license because investing turned out so well for me. But it was really that there's nowhere to go but up. I have to succeed mindset. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was stressing. I'm like, I'm going to have to go get a 9-to-5. I had this new big house, big mortgage, and no JOB, right? But I used every bit of that to my advantage. Like I said, the only way to go is up. So if you're driven and you really plug in and you have a vision, I actually volunteered to work for another investor for well under my normal rate and everything, just to put food on the table and create the connections I needed to create. So I ended up working for like $15 an hour, just like, here, I'll finish your project for you. They ran into bad contractors, had bought a bad property. So they were in a really bad investing situation. But joining up in the local real estate group, which is always the best first resource, is plug in locally. I was like, look, I need money. I'm either going to go work at McDonald's or plug in even harder and find a way to leverage this situation. And so I volunteered to help her out, work on her property. She bought materials, paid me $15 an hour, which was low for me, running businesses and everything. but it was enough to put food on the table and build the resources I needed. And I actually used that to bring lenders in and other people to see that I could do the work and I wasn't talking out the side of my neck. So that was my big leverage tool.
What I'm really curious about, because I think this is something that every entrepreneur has had in some way or another, which is that moment of like, God damn it, I really don't want to go get the McDonald's job, but I got to pay rent, I got to pay the mortgage, whatever it is. How did you use that stress in a positive way? Because I think when we talk about, and I got a swim or die parent on the Zoom next to me quite a bit, but it's, when you're in that swim or die situation, it's really freaking good for a lot of things, but sometimes you don't swim. Sometimes that stress can take over. So how were you able to use that stress in a positive way rather than letting it drain on you and hurt your productivity?
Man, conditioning. It really, I think a lot of it was conditioning. I've had so many of those low points in my life that was the only thing to hang on to. I was looking for just something that was going to fit into what I pictured. I had even found this perfect job that fit every check in the box, right? I've worked with nonprofits. I've worked in construction. I've started businesses, and there was a company that was going to pay me enough to help start a business, a nonprofit, and it wasn't a commitment job. Right. So it was just a short term, like a year, get their business up and going in the construction industry to help them. And every box I could check for what this company was looking for. And it paid enough to get me by and didn't require 100% commitment. I could still figure out my real estate stuff on the side while working for this company. And I just thought it was a godsend. I'm like, this is it. I did not get the job.
Oh,
did not get it. I was somewhat crushed, but I sat in front of a board.
Come on, man. Don't undersell yourself.
I
thought what he means by somewhat is that he was crushed for a little while, and then he got his ass back to work, is what it sounds like, right?
It was an interesting situation though, is they didn't even tell me that I didn't get it. One of the guys on the board calls me up. This is a great thing here. And I think this was kind of a motivator, is he calls me up and he says, "Hey, this is an unofficial call. I am calling you because so you didn't get the job. I don't know if you didn't hear, you didn't get the job, but I have started companies. I started XYZ over here and ran it up, sold it, this, that, and the other." And he's like, "I know how to run a business. They all just sit on a board. They don't know anything. My choice was you." And I told him they were idiots for not choosing you. And he's like, "I just wanted to make sure I reached out to you because I wanted to know you because I know you're going places." And that's kind of a motivator, right? It's like, keep your head up, keep your head in the game. We know, you obviously have what it takes to do something. And like I said, I think a lot of it is just conditioning, not against the education part, because the great thing is the education is out there. One of the biggest things that I tell people when I talk to people is you don't need a mentor, you need a motivator. Because we're capable of so many things and there's so much information out there. The problem is we're our biggest obstacle because we lose faith in ourselves. And every day that I go back and I'm looking, and it's like, if I would have quit because of something, what I say to myself all the time is I can be doing this for myself, which is what I'm doing, or I can go and make somebody else money doing the same exact thing, clocking in 9 to 5, or right now, if I don't want to go somewhere, I don't have to go somewhere, but I'm doing the exact same thing when I am swinging a hammer doing this, right? So that was kind of my sales point. It's like, I can do it for somebody else, or I can do it for myself. And at least for myself, I'm not doing it for 40 plus years, like everybody else.
My big question that I always think of in this transition is, is how did you go from that? I get a paycheck every Friday to I've got to sell something to put money in the bank. And the probability goes from, yes, I get, as long as I'm showing up for work, I'm getting money, to now I'm doing this work and there's this variable out there that's out of my control. How did you adjust to that mindset? Or I'm gonna give you the option of opting out of that. I don't walk into the water, I run off the dock. And I'm guessing I know which kind of guy you are, but I'll stop rambling here in a second. Not immediately, because I like to just continue on sometimes. But
was that a new swim or die metaphor right there?
Yes.
Running off the dock. Okay. I don't know if I heard that one.
It is.
I think now I understand now. I may not have understood then. One of the words you said, the variable that's unknown, right? And I think back to even with my brother. My brother's a 9-to-5 guy, builds multi-million-dollar houses, right? Totally capable of doing the same thing. The only difference is he don't have the understanding and the faith in himself to walk away from a 9-to-5 fully. But the biggest thing is really, you said the variable, the unknown variable. I feel that I have more variable or more solid variables than a 9-to-5 worker. We know we're expendable in a job place. People don't realize that. They're relying on the 9-to-5, and that's kind of where they're stuck. People get stuck in that. And, I see now that I can look at a property, know what it's valued at or where it's going to be valued at, know what I'm putting into it, know what the rents are going to be, or whatever the situation. Those are standardized variables. Those are quantifiable mathematical variables that are going to give me a higher comfort level than putting my faith into someone else paying me every week and not replacing me not getting sick, right? Because at least with my other variable, hey, if I'm sick, if I can't swing the hammer, well, maybe I can hire it out if I ran my variables right. So really, this is a more solid foundation than a 9-to-5, because this, I'm making the variables, that they're making the variables. 9-to-5, the boss is making the variables. This, I completely make or break myself, right? COVID crash, whatever, those variables were still accessible for me, right? A lot of people had tenants that didn't pay or whatever. We were still in comfort numbers. I don't buy anything that is a stretch type thing. I want comfortable numbers. I don't buy everything. I'm looking for the diamonds, the gold. A guy that's going out there for gold doesn't substitute for some silver, right? Mm-hmm. He's always going to look for the gold. And that's the difference, is I'm not just going to bite just because it's a good deal. I'm not going to get emotional over the numbers. That's the biggest mistake you can make, is just getting emotional over a deal, just trying to make something happen. So I have more control, I think, over my variables than someone else.
I'd love to hear the how you learned that. What was the purchase, that leap of faith that you took? That house you bought that just, it didn't work out, and how you gain this understanding of the data, the variables.
Of what didn't work, that I might have had that didn't work out? Or?
Yeah, that one that you went and looked. Now you look back and go, or even right then it was like, 90 days into it, whatever, and you go, oh shit.
And I was gonna add on, was it one of your projects, or did you see someone else? Because if you learned that mistake from somebody else, that'd be you in a much better spot.
I honestly have not had that happen.
Oh, wow.
I have not had a bad deal. And I think a lot of that is due to, I operate with none of my own money. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of a twofold. So because I'm using other people's money, because I'm operating out of integrity, I'm even more cautious with their money. Mm-hmm. So because I have a liability and a responsibility to them. So my workers and my investors, I'm always looking at being my first payouts before I ever see anything. If I've got to struggle, if I've got to eat ramen noodles, they're going to eat steak. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to make it happen. So whether it's long hours or whatever, that's that gold, finding gold. There's never been a question in my mind on the deal, but I've got to know the variables. I got to know the numbers. I have to make sure I know the numbers and leave enough meat on the bone, as we say in the industry, right? That at the end of the day, so not to get into the numbers too much, because most people who aren't in real estate aren't really looking at it, but some people will buy at a 5 cap, 6 cap, 7 cap. I want to purchase at a 10 cap. And that's with a value add that I can bring it up to even higher. I was buying, and my portfolio was running 33% return on cap rates, which was like unheard of. And this was pre-COVID, before hyperinflation and everything else going on. My return rates, especially in this industry, in this particular area that I'm at, were just unheard of on my return rates. I also was getting way higher rents. Just my operations and things that I was doing of adding value, believing in people, really, because I believe that if you give people good housing, people are willing to pay more because you're not going to treat them like crap. They're going to have a home, so we were able to charge more, but we're also putting a lot more of us into it, giving them a good home. Right. So we would invest more into the property than most landlords. We would get higher rents. So our increase was substantial. We were able to change neighborhoods over from lower class neighborhoods to decent areas to live in, family oriented type neighborhoods, things like that. And so I have the closest I've had to a bad deal. So this is the closest on the bad deal side, because everybody likes the dirt, right?
Yeah, we got to get the dirt, man. Give us
the dirt, which still was not a super bad deal. I'll run you through so this was a giant 3,000 square foot double, fire burnt right through the middle from the furnaces all the way up. These pictures are amazing, by the way. I typically, on a property like that, nobody was doing fire jobs in the area. Usually on a property like that, because the values are so low in the area also, you can't put a ton of money into it because you'd never recoup it. But I ended up paying more than what I wanted to. Usually I'll go in, I'll take it over for them for free. I'll pay all the closing and things like that, because they still get insurance money. They're still making more than they'll ever make. But the insurance requires them usually then to tear it down or rebuild it, right? So they're still in a win. So we're not taking advantage of anybody. They've made more than they would have made technically selling the property when it was good. And then, so I did pay more because it got into a slight bidding war. I think I paid 25 to 50, somewhere in there. It's been a while. Compared to free, that's the big difference.
That's good money compared to free.
But I knew that in the long run, my values were going to be 200 to 250, which was also higher for the market in the area. But due to, like I said, usually the neighborhoods and people's ideas of what good is, we tend to try to improve that. So by the time I was done, the dilemmas I had, so I was paying hard money. That hard money costs a lot, right? So every month it's probably $1,000, $2,000. So the length of time as that drags out, it costs me even more. And this was the hardest part. Certain parts of projects you cannot do. Electrical, plumbing, you have to have licensed people do these per code and per the city and things. And I ran into 2 bad electricians. One of them would show up for about 40 minutes and then show up 2 weeks later for about 40 minutes. And now, mind you, this whole time I'm paying hard money. So months of this dragging out, trying to get them over there and just finish it up. And I'm not even going to tell you that I was doing a lot of the work. So I can't tell you that. but months and months, this went on for a long time. And I still ended up overpaying him and everything for the project. Ended up having to have another electrician come in to finish it off, which took even more time because I can't move forward without the walls closed in. So I still have to get electrical inspection, insulation inspection, then close in my walls. Nothing else moves until the electrical and plumbers are done. That cost me a ton of money just in the length of time, not considering the fact that I still paid him what I could have paid someone else to get in and get done. So bad contractor, bad decision in that scenario. It ended up drawing out. Now the deal did not end up bad at the end of the day, right? Appraisals came in, 250 on the money. I made my money. My mark was good. So I still was doing great there. My appraisal was higher than what I had all in. Everything's fine. But that's probably the worst, most tight margin that I've ever hit. So yeah, that's my bad story.
And for you in that industry, I find this interesting as a businessman. We always talk about time is money. It's a different kind of time is money for you. It's sitting there on that house. It's just you're just throwing money in the hole, right? And it's just falling down to the basement and burning up in the furnace.
It's
in that sense.
Yeah. It is scheduling, right? Because I had a system too. So my process here, it takes 3 months to close on a property. So every 3 months, I wanted to be closing on a property. So my construction, it's going to take me 3 months. By the time that construction's done, I got the next property lined up. So that was another thing that kind of happened. He's dragging that out. Well, by the time that I get anywhere, I'm on to the next property. So then I'm on to the next property. My system is still going, and now I'm falling behind on that one because I can't get back to that one. So it's a time is money to the nth degree in this industry.
One thing in kind of a similar vein that I was thinking about prepping for the episode is that for your business, you have a very interesting setup where the value, like real estate wise, and without going too much into it, but basically it's going up. You look at a lot of investments, what you're looking at, and you can say, okay, this property will be worth X amount in, 5 years, 10 years, once I fix it up. These, there's much more, like you said, quantifiable variables in a lot of that sense. But then on the other end of the equation, between what you're talking about with contractors, what you're talking about with building supplies, sorry, I couldn't think of a better word than supplies, but material input and all those different types of things that you have on one end, this very relatively simple equation as far as businesses go. And then you got the other end of it, which is a lot crazier than a lot of other businesses. So how do you manage those from the management standpoint inside of your business? And then I'm also curious, how do you play that out to the investors to try to create a sense of certainty around that?
So the first question, so basically like supplies and things going up, like this hyperinflation we hit, right? Is that kind of what that's geared towards?
Yeah, basically that you have, relatively controlled on the end product, but then as far as the inputs, it's got to be all over the map for you.
This is the first, obviously, hyperinflation, even on materials and everything we've really experienced, going forward. I mean, when a sheet of plywood went from $10, less than $10 to $50, right? I mean, that's inflation.
Yeah.
Now we're back down a little bit, but we'll never go back down to where we were. Two benefits to that, not benefits, there's good and bad. I mean, we've had hyperinflation in the market. The key is, again, not to be emotional. I know that we're inflated higher than where we were, but even where we were, keeping track of the market. So I actually predicted this market increase, and I know that it's also going to creep back down a hair, but we'll never be back down to where we were. And so just staying on top of the market, like every night, like any house that hits the market on the MLS, off the MLS, we was talking about emails earlier. I'm getting them, I'm watching them, even if I'm just scrolling through, because I want to see what the market's doing. I want to see where it's going, the direction. You can kind of gauge those sort of things. And also, I want to know that I'm not going to overpay for something. So even though we've had a hyperinflated market, I don't get emotional with it. I know it's going to go back down. So if it's going to take me, so when I look at a property, I already know it's going to be 3 to 6 months. So actually 6 to 9 months. It's going to take me 3 months to close on a property here locally. It's not that way everywhere. So I've got 3 months just to get closed. So that means the market shifted already. I got 2 to 3 months of rehab. It's shifted again, right? Then I've got someone that offers on it to buy it, and it's going to be another 3 months of hold cost, right? So those variables, as long as I know those variables and I run comfort numbers. So if a house's ARV right now is technically pulling up 180, but I know the market's going to shift back down, I might be looking at my ARV as actually running it at 160, because I want comfort numbers at the end of the day. I'm not going to go off of what the market is today, because I know tomorrow it's going to shift, right? So there's still other variables I have to input in my brain. You know, I don't have a mathematical equation on Excel, but I just have to kind of know these things in the market, or have good advisors that know these things, and different avenues for that. Material costs increased, but the property values increased, right? So I still have to weigh those costs to get things done and things as well. But again, I run super comfortable numbers. I'm not going to, just because I know maybe labor and stuff is going to go down, I'm not going to lower that, because most likely it's not, right? We're up there, cost of food or whatever, everything's up. We're not going to see any decrease. They're not going to decrease after they've increased food and vegetables and things like that. Gas, maybe a little to fool you a little bit, but we're not going to see $2 gas again, ever, right? We know this just from history and things that we've gone through. So those, my numbers, I know what's going to fluctuate up, what's going to fluctuate down, and I weigh it for that and call it what it is. It's a solid variable I can go off of. And at the end of the day, if it's still worth 180, it's a bonus. But I can't bank on that 180, right? Because in my mind, somewhere down the line, it's going to go back down. So
and you answered the second question there by just killing it on the sales pitch. I'm all in. I'm in, Adam.
But my numbers are super comfortable. I run, like I said, it's got to be gold, not silver. I'm not going to look at a gold colored piece of silver and say, I can, if it's questionable, you got to walk. That's all there is to it. You can't squeeze numbers. You can't think, hey, I'm going to go and, well, I can get a contractor down on price. No, you have to run it like you are just, hard numbers. If it's going, if you can get a roof for 15, but normally it's 20, you got to run it as 20. Because if that guy at 15 isn't going to come through, you're going to pay 20. And those are the comfort numbers. You've just got to be solid on those. Otherwise, you got to walk. I've walked for way more deals than I've taken, right? But it only takes one. Technically, for me, I mean, with one good flip, I make more than what most people make in a year, right? So all I would technically need to survive is one property a year. How hard do you think that really is? If you're cycling through enough properties, it's like it's like marketing of any sort, right? 100 no's till you get to a yes. So you just need that one yes to be successful. And then the problem is once you do one, you're addicted. You're hooked. The guys that I help and do this, and they get, they struggle. Like, I mean, I've handed them properties, set them up with properties, no money of their own, got them in it. All they had to do was the work, and the whole time they're struggling during the work. But then as soon as it's done and they see that extra $300-400 a month coming in, and the rents, flowing and stuff, it's like you're hooked, because it's like, man, there's just a whole nother world on the other side of this lens. So,
I want to jump into, because if I remember right, I was gonna be all cocky and say I know, but if I remember right, you're at a really interesting point in your business. And that's the scaling. That's the Adam is no longer the source of everything. How are you setting up that next phase of growth for, and I don't think we've said your business name yet. It's called Flipping the Rock, which
Yeah.
really fun name, by the way. But how are you setting that up for future growth?
So how am I setting it up for future growth? Really, everything. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, we're in such a microwave society, right?
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
No.
It's not. It depends how you look at it. Like, I want everything now. We all do. But the expectation of now is the difference, right? We can have a microwave mindset as long as we don't have the microwave expectation.
Yeah.
Right. So everything I'm doing now, or had been doing for the last 5 years, was constantly looking at what's it doing for my future, right? Most real estate investments are equity plays. We're looking at the equity that we're building into. The rents are paying down the mortgage, so you're building equity into the properties. Yes, it helps with your living expenses and things that you're doing as you go, but in the long run, it's really an equitable thing. So you're looking at the future play, right? And as far as scaling, well, the market's increased greatly. So it's allowed me to look at leveraging the equity I've built now. So not just the income coming in from where I'm at and things like that, but now it's like, okay, well, what can I do? I can sell everything off, pull out my equity that I've built into it, because I know most likely it's not going to get super much higher, right? We're at the top of a market. And I think when you interviewed Mark Hayes, I had listened to that, and he was talking about like up market, down market, you can make money, right?
Yeah.
So it's just how you play the cards. There's so many different avenues of investing. So now I'm kind of looking at, do I sell everything off, use my equity, leverage that into a larger scale, right? So, I can multiply the amount of homes I have now substantially just by pulling out that equity and leveraging that, just like you would a house. You leverage your little 20% down, your 3% or 10% down on a house, and banks cover the rest because they love lending you money. It's the same concept. You're just doing it on a different tarmac. So
talking about the market, there's a little bit of a comparison that popped in my head. I'm not sure how far off this is, so sorry if I derail us for a few minutes. We'll come back afterwards. I'm sure Dad has a good question, but what it keeps reminding me of, prepping for the show and then as we're talking, is the sports contract market. And I don't know how valid this is, but what I keep thinking about is a conversation I had with our producer, Norman, earlier this week, talking about the Cowboys, of course. And we were talking about how Dak Prescott's contract, making all this money. And what I was arguing was that the market gets super inflated by the top quarterback, in that example, having to get the top money. And then you go, okay, well, comparatively, I'm fourth, so therefore I have to go here. But then there's always this desire to set that new mark. And in what I was trying to argue was that basically that inflates the value of everybody that's not in that, let's say top three, more than they're necessarily valued at. A little bit of a shot at Dak Prescott probably making way too much darn money. But do you think that there's that comparison holds true? Because what I've been thinking is that in the market, you could see that top rate being thrown up by these crazy houses, the multi-million-dollar houses, and that it's pulling up other ones more than they necessarily should be based on the literal value of the property of the house and that type of thing. Do you think there's any validity to that comparison?
Absolutely. I mean, we kind of covered it a little bit. It's that hyperinflation of the market, the same thing, same scenario and related to that. Again, I'm not going off the market. Everybody else may be okay with a 5 cap. I'm going to wait. I'm going to find that piece of gold again. I'm not going to go off emotion. I'm going to go off of hard variables. So yeah, it is hyperinflated. So when I scale up, when I'm going to that next level and everybody else is like, oh yeah, 100 and something units, 5 cap, right? Like it's not good enough for me. If my numbers are not solid, if I cannot, sustain a COVID incident, if I cannot sustain, some sort of hardship along the way to where I'm going to have to go to my lenders. Like, again, like I said, that is my biggest concern. It really is. I know it sounds like, oh, you're just, no, but like the people I care about the most in this deal is my reputation. And that is only reflected through people around me, my lenders, my workers, and things of that nature. And so it's not about me and mine so much as it is fulfilling my obligation. Because if I can fulfill that obligation, even if I have a hard deal that I don't make money, that I lose money, whatever, if that were the case, if my lenders were taken care of, what are they going to do? I'm still in the game. The first time I disgruntle or don't come through with what I say or how I say, or any type of miscommunication, even, which is another, big thing. You've got to communicate. You've got to let them know. Like, even if I have a hardship, I'm letting them know. I have a lender that I had for probably less than 3 months, a new lender they lend, but new to me, because I also create lenders, but they were new to me. They do lend. And I was going through a refi on a set of properties, including one that they lent on. Brand new. They just lent me the money to purchase it. And I was already in the process of refi. We have a minimum that we pay them. And I'm like, hey, I called them up and I said, hey, the refi is not going as quick as I anticipated, blah, blah, blah. Just being verbal with them, letting them know, like, hey, these are the situations going on. It didn't go through right away. And they're like, that's fine. Thanks for letting us know. But, we're locked, you're paying us and you're not due for this long anyways. And, so that, I have a year to pay them, but I'm calling them in 3 months and saying, hey, I didn't get it refied as quick as I thought it would have, because to me, like if they're happy, that's what I really want. I want them to be successful, because the more they believe in me, the more it's going to help me along the way. So if I can pay them in 3 months with a 6-month minimum, they're making twice as much money off of me. It's not hurting me because it was in my plan to pay them that much anyways, right? So they're making twice as much money off me. They're going to be even happier. So even with I tell people, like, when someone's lending you money, as a business partner or whatever, you're making them money. And so after I pay them back, you know what they're going to do with their money? They're going to give it right back to me. It's crazy how that works. When they're happy and I pay them all back and I give them, here's your money, here's interest and all this, and then they're going to turn around and give it right back, because they didn't need the money on hand. It's not money that's putting food on their table. It's their investing money. It's their what can I do with this to make later on better? So as soon as I pay them back, they're giving me the money back. Like, here, what else you got going, right? And so the happier they are, the more they're making, whatever it may be. If the numbers work, I'm good with it. Like, here, I don't care. You hear the term wholesalers and things like that. I don't care what anybody else is making off my property. If I can walk away making money and they can walk away happy, more power to them. As long as I know the numbers and it works for everybody, that's the real goal, right? So
here's my general business question from outside of your industry looking in, is who's in the end, who is your customer?
My customer, I have a few. A would be my tenants.
Okay.
Right? Because very, very important to screen well. Right? That's the screen well. So that way, they're they are going to be able to be satisfied, right? Some people just will never be satisfied.
Yeah. I know a few.
I mean, yeah. So your tenants, because if they're not, a turnover costs you more than anything. You don't make a lot per door. Like, average high end per door is probably $300 a month, right? That's not a lot.
It's not
in net. I mean, it sounds like it maybe to the tenant, right? Oh, they're making all this money, but how much money did you really put into the property? You know, before the tenant moves in, if I'm putting $15,000-$20,000, how long do I need to spend for that? How long do I need that tenant to live there for me to make that $15,000-$20,000 back?
Yeah.
Just the improvements.
Mm.
That's not counting the purchase when they're thinking, oh, well, I'm paying their mortgage. Just the improvements. If I'm spending 15, 20 to improve a property for a tenant to move in, and I'm only making $300 a month to pay that back, that takes forever. If I have to a service call, if I have to call an HVAC tech or somebody out during the time they're there, one time will eat up all year's profit or more, right? So you're really not making money off a tenant like they think. We're living large, sitting on a beach. It's that quantities of scale that helps.
Mm-hmm.
It's the tenants and the properties that don't have issues over time and the length of time that people stayed there and things like that, that it's slowly building our equity in the long run. That's really what it equates to, right? A plus B over Z. All those other variables really equates to long-term investment, not get rich quick, because you've got to do it multiple doors, quantities of scale, and it gets easier quantities of scale, right? So that's what we talked about, rolling it up into the next level.
Are your lenders then? Do you look at your lenders? And this is kind of where I was going, is where they fit. Are they more of a strategic partnership then, as opposed to a customer? Is that how you look at them?
A lender, yes, you could say it that way. I don't even see it as, you could say a partner, but partnerships are really difficult, right? Partnerships are marriage.
Yeah.
But yes, you could say that because it is a marriage. You want to keep them happy, right? They're very limited on the say of what happens, though, right? Because they're strictly usually hard money per se is what we usually use, which means they're just lending the money secured by the property, like a mortgage, like a bank. They don't say you've got to put in this type of tile. They don't say, this tenant, let me screen this tenant. They have no real say of what's going on. They just have you bet on the jockey, not the racehorse. Right? So they're betting on the jockey. They're betting on you that you're going to operate and sustain this property properly. And so they are, well, heck, what would be a jockey's boss? I mean, they're the, I don't know. Do they have a name for that?
That's a good question. I don't know anything about horse racing.
No horse racing experience here either. So,
but they're the really. I mean, you want to keep them happy, right? They own the track. For you to stay on the track, they're very important. They don't get in your business, right? A good one. Good lenders don't. They don't get in your business so much. They're just happy that you're fulfilling your obligations and stuff like that. So it's very hands off. So not so much of as a partner as you would think partner.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's a great explanation. And man, Adam, this has been amazing. And for me, what I learned, wow, let me see. I'm going to go back to something that is just because I always love jumping on the fundamental stuff. That is just a foundational, fundamental thing that has led to your success. Is having that vision, a clear, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. So many people are afraid to do that and pursue their own vision, whether it's they don't feel like they're worthy. They might be afraid of hitting it wrong or whatever. But that right there is such an important part of being successful. And I think from the outside looking in, that is what's led to so much success that you've had in growing from literally the kid with a hammer, driving that 8-penny nail and a framing job to flipping houses and, doing what you're doing now with that success is that vision. So that's what I learned. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Earlier in the conversation, we were talking about the stress and, Adam, you mentioned that it was conditioning, and that kind of was a light bulb moment for me. I think about stress in the entrepreneur sense a lot, and the risk aversity of different types of people and all that kind of stuff. And I never really put it that way, that it's the conditioning. Like, what's your background stress level? If you're always going through this, then it doesn't feel like stress to you at all. Conversations I think we had on the podcast 2 years ago when the pandemic rolled around, that so many people like froze because their background stress level just went so much higher than what they're used to. And I guess that was kind of an eye-opening thing of just the background stress level in an entrepreneur is already so high. And so you're just living with that high level of stress that from the outside looks crazy, but it's like, dude, if you've been doing that for 15 years, you don't even notice anymore.
You are going to have resistance. There's no doubt about it, right? If you're spiritual or whatever, the devil's going to attack you when you're on the right road. So when you're on the right road, you're going to be attacked. So no matter what, you're going to have resistance. And so you can expect it, but if you expect it, if you plan for it, you know that there's a breakthrough on the other side. So you just keep pressing.
That's awesome. Adam, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
What did I learn? I learned you don't do much framing. No, with your 8-penny nails.
I saw your face. Wait, can you explain that? Because I saw your face when you said that.
Screwed
16,
up the size.
16.
Been a long time.
Hey, you're probably going to have a little shaky house. No.
That's right. So there's your lesson, folks. Don't hire Otis to do your framing. Okay, there you go. But
no, that is probably the thing I did learn today, is how we mentioned the stress level and stuff, because that's one that I haven't really addressed and said before. Just if you're conditioned, if that's kind of, it's coming, or how to press through it, and you just keep pressing, because it really does. It's a high level of stress, but what's going to stress you more, right? Do you really want to? You stress every day going to jobs. You stress, with the people around you, and you don't have a say so there, because you feel that that's where you're stuck. So
at least it's in your control this way, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. How do folks get in touch with you, learn more about what you got going on with Flipping the Rock, maybe even sign up for some of this training that you're talking about in the future?
So how do they get in touch with me? That's Flipping the Rock, or Adam at flippingtherock.com is probably the best way. And that's ROC.com, not ROCK. The story behind the rock part is we're in Rochester, New York, and everything here is the Rock. So ROC.
Love it.
If you did happen to search it, this is how good that name is. I am the legal entity of Flipping the Rock, ROC. Someone tried to steal it because they wanted to do their HGTV show. And so they have paid a bunch of money to kind of do all the fancy logos and everything else. Unfortunately, I was head down to the grind, didn't focus as much on marketing and things like that. So they have a lot of marketing out there. But I have the upside down and inverted F, and then the regular R on my logo in the black and blue. And they have a nice, very beautiful logo that they paid, I'm sure, dearly to get, and their little videos. Again, I was swinging the hammer, lessons learned along the way, with marketing and trademarking and all this stuff now. But so Adam at flippingtherock.com. And we do have a Facebook that I don't keep up with as well as I should. I do have an Instagram, though, that, however, when I post on my regular Facebook, it does transfer to Instagram. So it's flipping_the_ROC.
Awesome. Hey, man, I appreciate it. This has been great. Some awesome business lessons and some lessons in the real estate market. So that's pretty amazing too. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, Adam McQuistin, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook, and please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Videos of the podcast are on our YouTube page, and you can always get a full archive of our episodes at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.